Hello, welcome everyone. First and foremost, thank you as always for tuning into my What Inspires You podcast series. Me and my team greatly appreciate your time and interest as always. Today on this episode, I'm excited because we have the talented Amália Leandro from Toronto. She's an international DJ, vocalist, spoken word artist, and founder of Nights into Mornings podcast. Join us as we sit down with Amália and talk about her deep roots and journey into house music and her passion for the arts. So stick around, get comfortable, grab your cup of coffee, your tea, your matcha, whatever works for you. And thanks for tuning in. Amália, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on here. Thanks again for your time and interest. It's an honor to have you on here.
Well, thank you so much. Likewise, it's an honor to be here.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate this.
No problem. Thank you. But first and foremost, let's start off. Happy birthday once again. I know it was your birthday a couple days ago, so I wanted to, make it right and say it in person.
Oh,
So
thank you. Thank
no,
you so much.
no problem. Like I saw some of your postings, your pictures. It's definitely a good feeling, when we get to that point in our lives where we get to celebrate again our birthday and we continue to do the things that we like to do. So once again, congratulations and happy birthday on your celebrations.
Thank you so much. I'm extremely fortunate to have a wonderful group of friends. And I have to say, the last few years, I didn't really celebrate my birthday much.
Mhm.
Different things were going on. So turning 55 was
Mhm.
to me kind of a big one. And my friends made it a very special celebration. So it was
I'm
wonderful.
I'm
Thank you.
I'm happy. No problem. I'm happy for that. I'm happy for that. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Like let's talk. Let's
Let's
talk.
do it.
Yeah, let's talk about Amalia. Like where is she from originally? Her roots, her hometown. Talk to us a little bit about your background history for those that don't know you, or for those that are trying to get to know you. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay, thank you so much. Well,
Mhm.
I was born in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Mhm.
My parents are Portuguese. I am first generation Canadian. Growing up in Toronto, at a very young age, we moved to the suburbs, the west end of Toronto, an area called Mississauga. I grew up there, spent some time in New Jersey as a teenager, also lived in Europe with my family.
Mhm.
And basically, my roots of house music started very early on at 16 years old.
Mhm.
From there, the passion continued. As I got older, I spent time in New York City, moved to downtown Toronto when I was 22, and became immersed in house music culture and whatnot. So that's pretty much the root of where I'm from,
Okay.
Toronto, Canada. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, my one of my good friends, Sneak, talks about Toronto and Canada a lot.
Hmm.
He's been around that part of Canada and all that stuff. So I think house music for sure. Like even and the interview is not about me, but talking about DJ and house music. Like I personally was a DJ like straight out of high school. Like I had friends that
Mm.
were basement DJs. They would just invite me over, I remember, and I'd come to their basement or their apartment or so. And I remember for the very first time, like when I was in awe of all this stuff. I remember the two turntables, the 12-inch vinyl,
Hmm.
all that stuff. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so that was something that for me like was something new, right? So when I first saw that, growing up on the south side of Chicago in a small neighborhood called Pilsen, it was a very small neighborhood, so a lot of us knew each other. And I remember watching my friends like just kind of put two records together and blend them and mix them and mess with the fader and the highs, the lows, and the mids, and all that DJ language was new to me at the time. So I was like, man, this is cool. Like I want to try this. And then eventually, like I ended up getting my own equipment and turntables and stuff like that, mixer, and I will dabble with it. And I was just like, man, like this looks easy, but it's actually pretty hard. So
Yes.
so that's when I realized, like, wow, these guys these DJs are talented. Like
Mm,
it's easier said than done, right? Because
absolutely.
I'm talking from experience because I've been there, done that. And so, you know, as the time went on, I realized like that I actually sucked at DJ. You know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't that great, because you do have to have certain level of skills, man. You really do. Like you know, I hate to break it to some people that think that they could just purchase the equipment and call themselves a DJ and producers, and that
Hmm.
yeah, no, there's a craft to this. There's a craft to this,
Absolutely.
and you have to put a lot of that dedication into it. So trust me when I tell you that, you know, there's definitely a science behind this stuff. So, you know, again, now let's go into like the whole music stuff. Like
Okay.
as you were growing up, you know, going into like, you know, your high school or college years, like how, at what point did like you actually dive in and like to, you know, start getting into like the DJing and picking up
Okay.
records and, you know, start doing like some parties or house parties? Talk to us a little
Okay.
about that era.
Okay. I will dive right into it. So
Hmm.
basically, when I was 16 years old, around that time,
Hmm.
we moved back to the Toronto area, and house music was a topic that all my friends in high school were talking about.
Hmm.
The warehouse parties downtown. And of course, I was too young to go to those parties, but at the time, there were all ages parties where you could go underage and hear house music and whatnot.
Hmm.
On the radio, there was a radio show, um, a DJ Deadly Headley's All Night Dance Party, and
Hmm.
the heads in Toronto, old school heads know that show. So I would be immersed into house music. It just, music was already a huge part of my life as a
Hmm.
child growing up. I collected records. My dad was into vinyl. I have vinyl records from the 70s till this day.
Hmm.
I started collecting records as I was a child. So music was not something that became a new passion. It just, the genre of house music is what suffocated my whole being into
Hmm.
wanting and loving it. So once I graduated high school, I was running around going to the warehouse parties, and during the day I was pursuing acting and modeling.
Hmm.
So I did not go to college. I always say that I went to the University of Life on the dance floor. So,
Hmm.
you know, I have a life education behind me. However, DJing was not something that ever entered my mind in
Hmm.
those days because, to your point, it looked extremely difficult to me. In those days, there was no tiptoeing around, there was no sync button, there was no tractor, there
Hmm.
was nothing except two records being mixed together.
Hmm.
And that technical skill is something that it's a forever learning game.
Hmm.
So I was a bit, it never entered my mind. So in my 20s, I continued doing what I was doing, um, working in fashion, acting. And
Hmm.
at night, I was bartending. And bartending in Toronto in the 90s, I fully immersed myself also into the rave culture and all the DJs and all the people and all the music. It just was a huge, massive part of my life.
Hmm.
So I actually started DJing quite late in life. At that time, it was considered quite late. I was about 29 years old
Hmm.
when I started thinking, you know what? I don't necessarily just want to be the person on the dance floor any longer,
Hmm.
but I don't want to stop being around this whole world.
Hmm.
And I was inspired by a DJ by the name of Smoke and Joe in London, England, in the UK.
Hmm.
In 1999, I was there with my sister, and we went to a party. I believe it was at Trade. I think I could be incorrect with that. But the party was BTPM on a Sunday afternoon.
Hmm.
Smoking Joe was playing, and I saw her, and I thought, I have to do this. And my friends were behind me, and they said, you need to do this. They knew how
Hmm.
much I loved it.
Hmm.
And at that time, there were not many female DJs. So I don't really know what the hell I was thinking, but I just decided to do it.
Hmm.
And so my passion for the music and the culture then became this obsession with wanting to learn how to DJ.
Mhm.
After that, I spent some time in New York City. So this all started in 1999, where I got serious, and I actually started to tell people. And I was telling DJs, friends of mine that I had met through the scene in Toronto, people like Roger Sanchez,
Mhm.
um, a person that I became very good friends with, Angel Moraes, may he rest in peace.
Mhm.
And these guys were so cool. They gave me records at that time.
Mhm.
And I would go to a club called Central Fly on Thursdays.
Mhm.
And I was there with some friends that I knew from New York, and they introduced me to other friends. And next thing you know, I'm meeting guys that run labels that are giving me their cards and saying, "Hey, come by, pick up some promos." So I remember walking around Manhattan with my record bag and stopping in to get promos from the labels.
Mhm.
And also, I would go and buy my records at places like Dance Tracks, Satellite Records, fully getting into it.
Mhm.
And I remember when I started, I had a technique and a Gemini. The
Mhm.
Gemini had no pitch control, and it was like like a little mixer. It was all very basic. But
Mhm.
they say that if you start off that way, you're kind of learning ahead of it.
Yeah.
So I started learning by trial and error. I had some friends give me some pointers. Different people gave me some pointers. And then I approached places and I started doing little gigs in New York, in Toronto. And then I ended up moving to Miami Beach in 2000, end of 2000, 2001. And at that time, I was like fully immersed. I'm DJing. This is what I do, buying records. And through friends of mine in Miami, I was able to secure some gigs. And I don't know, it kind of blew up pretty quickly. Before I
Mhm.
knew it, I was playing 3, 4 nights a week. Um, and it kind of took off from there.
Wow, I love the story, and it's interesting because like there's a lot of similarities like with me, right? Like eventually, like when I would see my friends DJ, I always wanted to try it, and it wasn't until again like coming back to what you were saying, like I didn't have like coming out of high school or like ditching. I was ditching high school to go to those daytime parties, you know what I'm saying? And in
Yeah.
in those daytime parties, I remember till this day I talk about it. One of my good friends from Chicago, CZR, did a record called Soiree, right? And so that track was the beginning of like the daytime parties. And every time I was at a
Hmm.
daytime party, I would hear his track play, whether it was him or it was other DJs that, were definitely throwing parties, daytime parties, like for people that were trying to cut school, So it was just, yeah, it was a weird,
Wild.
yeah, it was wild because I remember I was like a freshman or sophomore in high school, and you would get this flyer, right? Like they wouldn't tell everyone. It was just some random person that would just pass by the hallway and just slide you over a flyer, and in the flyer it would say, daytime party at X address at this time. Don't tell anybody. This is by invitation only. And I would be like, man, that's kind of crazy. So at first I would think like that's kind of fake, but I would show up, and sure enough, like there's someone at the door. They're charging, they're charging at the door. You walk in,
Hmm.
and then you go up some stairs or down some stairs to a basement, and all of a sudden you just hear like the boom, 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 like the loud
Sure.
bass.
It's exciting.
Yeah, you
Hmm.
hear the windows rattling on the house. And next thing you know, like there's a bunch of people in there. You see the kegs of beer, like the DJ in the center of the place. And I'm just like, man, what is this? Like, what is this? And next thing you know, like these are called daytime parties, man. Like people, like the students are cutting school trying to get to these parties. And that was
Wow.
yeah, that was the beginning of me experiencing those daytime house parties. And I was like, man, like I love this. I want to know more about this. And then eventually, like I started to meet the DJs, one thing led to another. And then next thing you know, like probably like when I graduated from high school, which I don't know how I graduated because I was like barely there and I was barely passing my classes, but I managed to graduate, and then I picked up a camera you know. So I picked up a camera, and I was like the neighborhood guy with the camera, and I would go to these parties, I would take the pictures, I would just like catch people having a good time. And then one thing led to another, and then, you know, it became like now like nightclub venues, right? So then now I'm coming out to the nightclubs in Chicago. I'm hitting every nightclub. Like, you know, I'm covering Bad Boy Bill. I'm covering DJ Sneak. I'm covering Mark Farina. All, you know, and then it just started blowing up from there. You know, so for me, the best thing that happened to me was being able to cover house party events and venues with some of the people that I look up to and that are like legendary DJs and producers, you know. So
Sure.
yeah, to this day, you know, like I'm very thankful and grateful for the opportunity that all these guys that I consider my friends gave me an opportunity and opened the door for me to say, like, you know, come in, come join us, like come catch some footage, capture some moments, and just have a good time, you know. And I try to tell people, right, like, not everyone knows about house music, not everyone is educated to house music,
No,
not everyone likes house music. And I always
no, not at
no,
all.
right. So I kind of took it as I took it under my wing to, like, it's my responsibility, right, to like advocate and educate people on house music. So I kind of consider myself like a house music ambassador, if anything, you know, because I was there. I tried to do it behind the decks, but unfortunately, I wasn't that great. And I understood right away, man. And I was like, you know what, this is not, like, I need to leave this path for people that are good at this and great. Like, I need to just stick to taking pictures and making memories and capturing great moments. Like, I'll do that, you know, for the sake of house music. But yeah, it was definitely something that was interesting for me to understand. And again, spending a lot of time behind the scenes watching people like Colette, people like Sneak, people like Bad Boy Bill, you know, do what they do best. It's crazy, man. It's mind blowing, you know. So I totally, when you talk about, I hear it in your voice when you talk about house music. You're passionate about it just like me. So I think it takes
For
people,
sure.
it takes people like us that are passionate about it, not to just say house music, but are passionate about it, to even talk about it. Um, but yeah, that's just kind of how it is, you know. And I know earlier you mentioned a couple DJs like Roger Sanchez and a few. So let's talk a little bit about this next, you know, question. Who are some of the DJs or producers that kind of inspired you growing up and kind of paved the way for you in the music industry and like really set the tone for you?
Okay, so you know, in the early days when I was going out to warehouse parties, sometimes I wouldn't even know the names of the DJs. It was just
Hmm.
so much about the party. And in those days, you'd call a number, and then from the number, they would tell you to go to an address somewhere in downtown Toronto,
Hmm.
and you'd get to that address, and then from there, they would give you the address to
Hmm.
where the actual party was, because it
Hmm.
was all underground. It was
Hmm.
obviously illegal. There was alcohol being sold.
Hmm.
So there was always a vibe. There were some early DJs that played amazing music that I wasn't necessarily aware of who they were,
Hmm.
but guys like Peter and Tyrone, the early days of Toronto warehouse, Kenny Glasgow. I have to say, you know, Danny Tenaglia
Hmm.
was a huge, he changed my life in a way
Hmm.
when I experienced him fully. The marathon sets, and this is something people don't understand. Now people call a 4-hour set extended set, which is ridiculous.
Hmm.
He would take you on a journey and you would learn. So I
Hmm.
learned a lot from him.
Hmm.
A local Toronto DJ that inspired me quite a bit, and I would spend many hours behind the decks watching him play, was someone by the name of John E.
Hmm.
He was a very good DJ. So in those years, a lot of local Toronto DJs were magnificent, and the talent that was coming into Toronto was enormous. People like Roger Sanchez, Green Velvet,
Hmm.
Cashmere, same person, different alias.
Hmm.
DJ Heather,
Hmm.
she was one of the first females that I actually was blown away by.
Hmm.
This is before Smokin' Joe. I had known about Smokin' Joe. So those people were huge influences on me. Victor Calderone, absolutely, that whole tribal tech vibe that was happening for a very long time, which I still love. So those were huge influences on me, those people, for sure.
Yeah, no, and I think as influencers, like, DJs and producers, they make a huge impact, not just in your music career, but in your life. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Everyone that I got a chance or an opportunity to work alongside with, I learned something different from each one of them. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's something that I was able to take away with me and kind of like use it in the future for whatever it was, whether it was for my photography or the music scene or whatever. And I think we all take something from that. Now, talking about experiences and all that other stuff, like, obviously, like, this is a very competitive industry, Amalia. We both know that. It's like
Absolutely.
it's a cutthroat industry. It really is. And so, sometimes, some people there's a lot of gatekeepers in the world of arts. Trust me. Even in my category, in the world of photography and directing and filming, there's gatekeepers everywhere. Nobody wants you to have a piece of anything, right? It's almost like you gotta earn it. You gotta work hard for it. Talk to us a little bit about, like, how important is mental health in this industry, right? When you feel like you're not getting the opportunities that you want or that you deserve, and that it's sometimes so challenging. How do you go around that, and how has something like this played a role in your music career?
I'm happy you're mentioning this. This is something I touch on my own podcast as well. Mental health is something that back in the day, no one really talked about. And not being well mentally, depressed, whatever the case may be. The older generation, Gen X, back in the day, it was very much keep it to yourself. Oh, that person's a bad energy if they're depressed. People weren't really talking about their feelings. I always did. And I definitely have had moments in my life where I've battled extreme depression for different reasons. But I will say going into the arts is not for the faint of heart. Deciding to pursue a creative career really takes a lot of audacity and it takes a lot of gumption, and you have to be ready for a lot of rejection. And it's difficult at times to accept because you feel I put so much time into this passion. I love it so much. And it's not easy. It's not an easy path. And there are times where you doubt yourself. It's easy to fall into the trap of comparison. I think what's important is for us to remember that we are here for a limited amount of time. And worrying about what other people think of us is one of the things that we shouldn't do, but we all do. I've allowed other people's opinions. I've tortured myself about things that I can do nothing about. I can't change how other people feel, what other people think. And it's sometimes demoralizing. You sometimes wonder, well, what am I doing exactly? Because for me, I've always had a very creative life path. From when I was a child, I wanted to be a model actor. Out of high school, I got into those worlds. And all of it is about a tremendous amount of rejection. I didn't exactly choose easy careers. I've always been a performer since I was a child, and without me really knowing it, that's kind of the direction I've gone into my life. DJing is definitely performing. So it's sometimes certain things you don't choose them, they choose you. I didn't necessarily choose the creative path. It's just who I am. And it's been something that's been a bit of a struggle, because you wonder, Jesus, why didn't I go a different route? Why didn't I get into XYZ? Because the path of an artist can be quite lonely. Because a lot of what we do is not in front of other people. It's behind closed doors where you work on your art, you go through your music, you practice your mixes, or you practice whatever art form it is. It could be lonely, and it could be quite depressing at times. So I think what's important is not to succumb to those feelings and remember that there's always another day. From the night comes the dawn, and you have to believe in yourself more than anybody else believes in you. That's really what it comes to. But mental health in this industry, especially, I will say, the DJing world becomes quite complex because the nightlife industry demands so much from you. You're up all hours. There are substances involved. People get carried away. The high is super high when you're playing, and the down can be tremendously, like, you can crash down really hard after having an amazing set, and you go home and you're by yourself and you're like, okay, well, now what? So it's not an easy path. It's not an easy path, but it's doable.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you, like 100%, like kind of touching back on what you were saying. And man, I really appreciate you bringing up this whole topic and conversation, because it's extremely important for in general, just for anyone or artists in particular. But I do have to give it to you. Like I have to, like, my hat comes off to you, Amalia, and I'm going to tell you why. Because not only did you make an attempt to get into the DJ world and industry, which is already like difficult
I don't even know what I was thinking.
but you started in the modeling world, you know what I'm saying? And so that's like my specialty, right? Like when I first dabbled with photography, like I was just like you, exactly the same. Like I was scared, because the modeling world is a beast. Okay, it's a beast. And when I knew that there was tons and tons of photographers that I had to go neck to neck with to even try to build a name for myself in the modeling world or the fashion industry photographer, like I already knew that I was going to go neck to neck with some of the best in the world. I already knew that, you know, and photographers come a dime a dozen in the modeling world. You know, it's like some of them will get to work with some of the like highest elite models in the world and agencies and magazines, and some photographers will never ever get one picture published in their entire life, you know. So it is difficult. So for you to have went from acting to modeling to then DJ, man, like that's like you crossed a lot of territory that not anyone can actually cross through and make it on the other end, like successful, or with some type of success. So I have to give it to you, you know. Kind of going back to like you mentioning the modeling, like talk to us a little bit about that, because that intrigues me a lot, you know. Again, I come from that background, you know. So talk to me a little bit about how was it like you getting into that, like you know, obviously, like, you know, you meet different people, models, agencies, photographers. What was your experience when you know, dabbled with the world of modeling and acting and fashion?
Okay. Well, I love that you said the word dabbled, because that's what it was, but I dabbled, quote unquote, for a very long time. So we're going back then. So from a very little girl, from when I was very young, I was teased and bullied from a very young age for being different. I was always the very tall, skinny girl. My teeth were crooked. I was not the average looking blonde, blue-eyed kid next door. I'm a Portuguese child, and my hair is very thick, and I cut it short. The kids called me mop head. I mean, I was called all the names you could think of. Too Tall Jones, Ethiopian skeleton. Really, kids can be awful. So even though there was that going on, which is kind of funny, because even though I felt like a bit of an ugly duckling when I was a little girl, I still wanted to get into modeling and acting. And my mother supported it. And there's pictures of me when I was little posing, which is funny. My mom enrolled me in this child modeling school, and I started doing some acting. My first headshot was when I was 8 years old, 7 or 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing some extra work on TV. And once I turned 16 in high school, that's when I started getting into the fashion world, because I was very tall. I was always 5'9". 5'9" is not extremely tall, but it's a good height for modeling. So a lot of girls, when they're that height, they try to push you into basketball and volleyball, which they tried with me, but I'm not athletic that way. I went into the modeling world in Toronto, which back then, all of it was completely different from what it is now. Digital photography didn't exist.
Right.
It was all very much analog. You had to book with models, makeup artists, stylists, photographers, and you have to invest into building your book. And so once I got out of high school, I was just pursuing that full time. And I was going on castings, go-sees during the week, doing fashion shows. I did some short films. I was very serious about acting. I was studying acting in my 20s. I even spent some time in New York at HV Studios, taking a class there. I was so much obsessed with fashion that, I mean, I still have collections of Vogue magazines from the 80s till this day. I collected them. So I would really jump into that world. In the 80s, there was no internet. So the way I connected with what I was passionate about was opening a Vogue magazine or an Elle magazine. And the editorials back then were just so beautiful, and they evoked a life of, feeling deeply, travel, art, culture, and I loved it. I was so obsessed with these girls. Now, for me, when I was modeling, a lot of agencies liked me, but they didn't love me. And the agencies that had me, that took me on, they would say things like, wow, you're so tall. You're ethnic looking. You're so exotic looking. They didn't really know where to put me because I didn't really fit in the model conformity where, in Toronto, it was very much like either you were white, and I mean very Anglo-white looking, Asian, black, but ambiguous looking people like myself didn't really have a place. It was very rare. They didn't know what to do with me. So I wasn't tremendously successful with the modeling. I dabbled in it. I did some great shows, but it was tough. And that world is cutthroat. They wanted me to go to Japan, and I was really young. I didn't want to do that. And I'm glad I never did, because in the end, it's a bit of a cash cow. They send the girls over and you have to pay for all your books, and it ends up being something that is important, but that wasn't the most important thing to me. I was more about acting. I loved the modeling aspect, but I really wanted to be an actor. So I made that transition. And, the modeling industry, I think nowadays, I don't know much about it nowadays. It's very different. And, that was my experience. And I have to say, I became frustrated with the constant needing to be approved, the bookings, the castings. And it was not easy. And I spent from, I guess, the age of 16 till I was 29 working towards that. And I thought, well, this isn't really working the way I want it to. I love house music. I love this world way more than I love the acting world. So I made a decision to basically stop pursuing acting and modeling, and I just went for it with the DJing.
Yeah, no,
which was probably even more difficult and not easy at all. But hey, that's what I decided to do.
No, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because I'll share a little story with, well, one of many of my photography highlights or stories. But yeah, same thing with me, if we're gonna get down to it, like, I'm gonna keep it real. So, even for me, growing up, after knowing that DJing wasn't going to be something that I was going to be great at, I was passionate about it. I bought records, I had the equipment, I worked really hard to build up enough gear to make music or whatever. It just, something was missing, right? My hands, I don't know what it was, but my hands were just not in sync with me trying to do that. Instead, somehow my hands were more in sync with a camera, and I couldn't understand how and why, right? So again, going back to what you were saying, like back then, in that beginning era for me, because I'm 49, right? So I'm gonna be 50 next year, so I'm old school, right? So I came from the 35 millimeter film days. I didn't transition into digital photography until it came out, like not right away, so I had to learn film first, develop the development process, all that stuff. So I had to start from the scratch, from the very bottom, and so when I first started with that, like I had to, like, I would take random pictures of whatever, landscapes, buildings, whatever it was, right? My goal was to start to build like a basic, like to get familiar with the basic fundamentals of composition, art, framing, lighting, textures, colors, all that stuff. That was like what I needed to learn. And I never went to school for photography, actually, like it was just something that was kind of like self-taught, till this day, when I purchased the first film camera, I don't I have OCD and I'm an introvert, so I don't like to read manuals. I don't like to read that much. So when I got the camera, it had the manual, and I just kind of like browsed through the pages, and I never even read them, and I was like, nah, this is too much. This is too much for my brain for my brain right now. Like I'm not gonna, like, I don't know how to, like, even where to start. So I kind of just dabbled. I put the film in there. I might have had a couple bad overexposed pictures at the beginning, but I needed to learn like the ISO speeds, the apertures, all that stuff on my own. And it took time. It took time because I went through like tons of rolls of film, developing them, and it was just a bunch of garbage that I was developing. Like it was nothing great. But again, through trial and error, that's how we get good. That's how we get better, right? So I kept going. I kept buying film. I started to get really good at the exposure, and then I started getting really good at the composition. And then right around that time, that's when digital was rolling in, right? Digital was rolling in, and I was like, man, maybe it's time for me to like do the transition into digital. And then I eventually, picked up a digital camera. I saved up all my pennies. And then I still remember like the Canon Rebel XT. That was one of the first generation digital SLRs that came out, and I picked it up, and again, same thing. It was even more complex than the film camera, because now you have tons of other different gadgets, buttons, options, settings, and I'm just like, man, I was overwhelmed. But again, I did the same thing. I'm not a person that really, like, I'm against manuals. I don't know what it is, man. I just put them to the side and I try to do it on my own. And so I dabbled with the camera. And then that's eventually when I started like telling most of my friends, hey, can I take your pictures? Whether they were DJs, right? I was like, hey, let me take a couple pictures of you. Maybe you could use them for like your CD cover or your tape or your mixtape or whatever. And thankfully, most of them said yes to me, right? Like, yeah, all right, cool. And I think that was like a big break for me. That was a huge break for me, because I was able to experiment, right? I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid to like, oh man, what if I mess it up? Well, there's no messing up, because they're my friends, right? Like they're not paying me, like I'm not charging them. So this is more like a test trial. Like, okay, let me learn from this. And then once I got good with that, that's when I decided to, like, you know what? I same thing like you. When you were talking about it right now, like it reminded me of me. I would look through the fashion magazines, and I was looking at the fashion culture. I was looking at the covers. I was looking at the model. I was looking at the wardrobe, the makeup artist, like how many people are involved in one production, right? And so, long story short, that's when I started getting into the photography stuff and started doing the fashion, and then one thing led to another. And so here's the kicker, right? So when I finally got to the point where I was comfortable enough, that's when I started like getting bookings with models, right? And back then, for people that don't know, or people that do know this, there was what was called TFP, TFCD. you know. And that basically meant like, you know, I'll shoot pictures for you for your time, and I'll give you a CD with the images, or I'll give you prints in exchange for your time, right? So I kind of had to start with, I had to start from that point, right? Because obviously the model didn't have money, and I didn't have that kind of money to like pay the model for her time. So we had to like kind of like collaborate and do a collaboration where it was a win-win for both of us, right? I got pictures from a model, and I got a chance to work with a model, and the model got an opportunity to get pictures from the photographer and then use them to build her portfolio. So I remember one day I get a contact from this person. She was a Korean model, and you know, in the message it says like, you know, I'm looking to build my portfolio. I'm from Chicago, like I'm studying, you know, in Champaign, Urbana for this and that, for I think it was like medicine, right? Like she was going for school of medicine, but I want to try photography, modeling, and I want to give it a shot. So, you know, I found like that was an opportunity for me to like jump in and kind of see where it goes. And sure enough, you know, fast forward, we did the photo shoot. It was a blast. She was kind of nervous because she didn't know how, you know, it was like one of her very first like photo shoots. We did it. We accomplished it. We got some great shots. Fast forward, like her name's Arden Cho, right? CHO, which she turned out to be like a huge success in the acting world, right? Like she's one of the ones from the series what is it, K-pop, right? With the K-pop thing, with the animation and stuff like that. And then she did a couple big roles for a couple short series or films. And so I talk about that because I was like, man, that's crazy. That's crazy that we both started like from nothing. We both started from scratch. Like it was just kind of like, let's just wing it, right? Let's just wing it and see where it goes. And you know, it turned out, something that small turned into something big for both of us, you know. And at that point, like I remember her telling me like, you know, I want to go into medicine, but it's not really something that I want to do. I'm passionate about like, you know, the arts, acting, you know, modeling. And eventually she got far enough to do what she loves, and I got far enough to continue to do what I love. So kind of coming back to, you know, what you were saying, like it is tough. It's tough. It's, you know, you'll be lucky if you walk out of this actually doing something great out of it, you know. So now let's talk about, because you did mention something that was also extremely important to me. You mentioned being an artist can get lonely sometimes, right? Like sometimes you know, we have to deal with a lot of stuff. Now, kind of touching on that subject, about, you know, being a loner or not. Let's talk about like, would you consider yourself like an introvert or an extrovert? And how would you say that this has helped you out in your career?
Okay, that's actually a very good question. So I would say I'm both.
Mm-hmm.
And the extrovert part of me that comes out, that was a huge part of my social life, being the extrovert that I am. And I'm a Leo, and I have a very passionate, strong personality. And the extrovert part of me absolutely helped the career in terms of networking, people that I knew. It was easy for me to oscillate between, you know, different cities, countries, and the house music community and the DJs. It was a very small community back then, so people knew each other. And because I loved socializing and being in the moment and speaking to people, so the extrovert part absolutely helped, you know, launching the career and maintaining the career, because anything in the arts has to do, there's a lot of networking and socializing that goes along with it. You know, especially in the beginning, if you're looking for work, whether it's DJing, or whatever it is, if it's acting or or being in a band, whatever it is, the people that are searching for work or want to expand, they go out all the time. They're at the parties, they're at the openings, they're at all the things. And there was a time in my life where I never was home ever. I needed to be out all the time. I loved it. That was the extrovert part of me. As I've gotten older, and even moments when I've been out, there's been moments where I've been out socially and I withdraw. The introvert part of me comes out quite a bit sometimes. And there are moments where I should have just gone home and I didn't. I stayed out. And sometimes people's perceptions could be, oh, she's this or she's that, or she doesn't want to talk. It also, when you are in the arts and when you're a DJ or whatever it is that you do, people forget that you're one person looking at a whole room of hundreds of people staring at you. And it's easy to feel connected. You know that person. But for the DJ, it's overwhelming at times, all the people you need to speak to, say hi to. And sometimes people get a bit offended if you don't remember them, which I find odd because many people don't remember me and I don't get angry about it. I've had people get very upset that I don't remember them. And then they'll tell me, oh, it was at an after hours 10 years ago that I met you. And I have to say, are you serious? You expect me to remember that? But the introvert part of me, I grapple with that. I feel like I'm more of an introvert now, later on in life, more than ever. And that can sometimes not help the career because at times I don't feel like socializing as much as I used to. I think that you have to have a happy medium in the end.
Yeah.
But it does help your career to be a bit more of an extrovert because you're out there and you're speaking to people. I know people that want to pursue acting, but they don't like going out all the time. They don't want to be, it's hard. It's hard to do both. You have to find a way that works for you, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say that because like I personally, I am an introvert. I do have a little bit of extrovert. And that's because it's necessary for the line of work that I do, right? I still have to be around certain people or certain circles, whether I'm working on a project or not. But when it comes down to the introvert part, like that's totally me. And you know what's interesting is I got so used to it. You know, I have well, I call them my kids because they're actually adults already. You know, I have a 24-year-old daughter and a 20-year-old son. But I still call them my kids, right? Even though they're grown-up adults. But it's interesting because sometimes, like, I think spending so much time around my kids really made me appreciate much more like my time around them and spending more one-on-one time with them and quality time, as opposed to, like, you know, I always have those friends that invite me out to parties, invite me out to gatherings, and I sometimes I feel bad that I have to say no, right? Or that I'm choosing not to go. And it's not because I don't want to spend time with them, or it's not that I feel like I'm too important or too good to go out, but I'm 49 years old. I'm going to be hitting 50. Like, at this point in my life, like I need to have a little bit more control over what exactly I want and not necessarily like what people want from me. Right. So sometimes it's hard, but like I would never trade the introvert for anything else. Again, I have OCD too. So some of those things go hand in hand. And so like sometimes like the big circles are like not that great for me. Like I'd rather be around smaller crowds or smaller circles. But again, you know, that works for me. It doesn't work for everyone. Some people are the total opposite of me, and that's great. But I think, like you were saying earlier, I think we have to figure out where we fall under and what makes us feel comfortable more than anything, you know, because I think at the end of the day, that's what matters the most. Our comfort zone, that's what matters the most as an artist. Now, I know that in this world, we talked about it, this is a very competitive industry. Like, what advice would you give other women out there that want to pursue a career in the DJ and the producing side of it, and, you know, really, you know, like really get ahead of it?
Okay, well, when I started DJing compared to now, it's a whole different world. Um, I started at a time where there was a lot of snickering and people would just laugh if a woman said she wanted to DJ, really. And I continued pursuing it because I just was at a point in my life where I didn't know what else I wanted to do, but I knew that I was passionate about this culture and I decided to do it. I don't think I really understood what I was getting into back then. And there are times where I don't even know how I continued to do it, but I somehow did, because it could be extremely humbling. There's a lot to learn. I'm always learning. As a woman, I have to say I was very fortunate where I've never had any complete scumbag be an asshole to me or whatnot. I've earned every single thing I've done. I'm very proud of myself for that. And I think that a lot of men that I was around, they actually respected the fact that I wanted to DJ. I think that as a woman, you get compared a lot to other people and women, which people shouldn't do, or compared to a man or a female DJ. It's a woman DJ. I don't get that. It should just be a DJ. But in the early days, it was rare to have an all-female lineup or play a lot around women. So for me, when I started playing, I'm a woman first. This is what I would say, and this is my advice to the women. You're a woman first. Don't feel like you need to dress a certain way to get taken seriously. Of course, you have to have some type of decorum, and each person has to be individual for themselves. But I remember when I would DJ, I would go play in 4-inch heels and I would get dressed up, and I loved that because it was a part of me combining my love of fashion, my background in modeling with the DJing. And I think some people might have taken that as like I was trying too hard. I remember, or because I remember in Miami, oh my God, summers in Miami are not a joke. And I remember I would DJ sometimes in a bikini top and jeans or whatever. It was just hot. And it was never about trying to be booked for that, and now I look back and I think there are people that probably mistook me. Oh, she's probably thinking she's going to get booked because she's dressing this way or that way. That was not it at all. I was just being myself. I would just say that you need to stay true to yourself and you need to ask yourself why. And this goes for female or female. When you want to be a DJ, you have to ask yourself, why do I want to do this? Because I feel like everyone, and I say that because it's just the truth. I heard that apparently DJing is like the number one career people are inquiring about. There is a high that comes from playing to people and getting the adulation and feeling part of community that is really important. But I feel like there's a slippery line between your ego and doing it for the love. And I've always done it for the love of what I do, the passion, the way music makes me feel, the way other people feel when I play. I just think it's important to stay true to yourself. I think that there needs to be, and I don't know how else to say this, but have respect for yourself, especially when you're in an area where there's a lot of men that automatically will think that a woman can't do this or that. Not so much anymore now. I think that you have to be true to yourself, whether you're a male or a female, and you have to really ask yourself that you really want to be a DJ. Because I think a lot of people jump into it because it's so easy to do now that anyone thinks that they can just buy a program and call themselves a DJ. And that's far from the truth. I think that you need to just honor what you feel for yourself inside. As a woman, we feel a lot, and we're not the same as men. Being and communicating. And I just think you just have to ask yourself what you really want to do. It's not an easy path. It's not easy, but nowadays it seems like I see all these girls playing now, and they get so much community behind them. Everyone's pro-female DJing. All the girls are female DJ this and that, and there are these organizations backing females in DJing. I think that's amazing. I wish that happened when I started DJing, because there was no female community in the DJ world, really. And going back to what I was saying before about early influences and whatnot, when I first went to New York around 1999, I had been in New York before, but not when I went back in 1999, 2000, my friend Maddie Silver took me out and he told me about this amazing girl that DJ'd, and I met Jackie Christie. So Jackie Christie was one of the early female DJs of the time that I was influenced by. And also, speaking of females in-house and how to get ahead starting now, something I never did before was the production end, because for me, I've never been so tech inclined, and I was all about the vocals, the spoken word, the writing. But what ended up happening was that I kind of depended on producers to create music to add my words to. So my recommendation would definitely be learn how to produce along with the DJing. It seems like now that's imperative. It's definitely a direction I would have started, or I would start if I was starting now. My best advice is just be true to yourself, have gumption, have audacity, and just do it for the love. Do it for the love. Do it because it's something you really want to do for the right reasons.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And again, like, I think when it comes down to artistry in general, whether you're a DJ, a producer, a photographer, a model, makeup artist, whatever artistry you're in, I think in all fields, like, it's competitive all around, like there's tons of people that are going into that same career.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of competition too, same thing with me.
I mean, I have to say, in 2026, everything is competitive. Everything.
Yes.
It's not just being a DJ. Everyone wants to be a photographer. Everyone wants to be an actor. Everyone wants to be a model. Everyone wants to be an influencer. Everyone wants to be a graphic designer. Everyone wants to be, the list goes on. We're living in a time where everything is oversaturated. Yeah. So you just have to go for what you like and believe in. That's it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think that, you said it the best. I think you just got to go for whatever, you're passionate about. And if it's going to work, it's going to work, like,
I feel one thing I have to say is be fearless. Be fearless, because fear can be crippling. Fear will stop you from starting. Fear has kept me in relationships and situations that I've settled for. And fear can stop you from being your best self. So be fearless and just go for it. That's the best I can say.
I agree with you 100%. And I think like I had, and just kind of to share this with you, like when I first started photography, Amalia, like I had so many more people telling me that if I was sure that I wanted to be a starving artist, or that I should try something different, because I'm going to regret it. I mean, that's how bad it was when I first started, and I couldn't understand like why people wanted me to fail so miserably, but knowing me, the person that I am, I mean, I'm stubborn, and I was going to continue to do whatever I felt was going to make me happy. And thankfully, I'm glad that I didn't listen to any of those people that didn't actually see the bigger picture. But here we are years later, still here we are continuing to do what we love. So once again, Amalia, it was actually, an honor and privilege to have you on here on the podcast and sit down with you and chop it up and talk a little bit about everything. So, once again, feel free to share with your audience and listeners, your social media platforms and where they can find some of your latest music releases or upcoming projects.
Okay. Well, so basically online, if you go on Facebook, I have my Amalia Leandro artist page. My Instagram handle is Viva Amalia. You can take a look there for what's upcoming. Right now, I'm working on some projects that I'm continuing and some new projects that will be launching very soon. Also, there is my Nights into Mornings brand, the lifestyle brand that I created 12 years ago. And there's also the podcast that goes with it. So if you check those out on social media or Google my name, Amalia Leandro, or Nights into Mornings, you can find me on the internet for sure.
Yeah, no, and for all those listeners out there, I'm gonna post a link to her podcast interview. That will actually take you to a lot of those other links of hers, so you can check out her stuff and hopefully, get a chance to see her live at some point wherever she's gonna be DJing at any of the future events. So once again, Amalia, it was great having you on here. Thank you so much for your time and energy. You brought a lot of positive energy to the podcast. And I know
Thank you.
I'm sure there's a lot of house lovers out there listening that are going to be listening to this interview and checking out your work. And hopefully, we inspired them.
Amazing.
We inspired them in one way or another. So thank you so much for your time.
You're so very welcome.
No
Thank you
problem.
so much.
No problem. Take care and we'll stay in touch, okay?
Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.